Well, welcome everyone. It's always nice to get the family together. As with any family gatherings, I think I'm hoping that we won't require a fire extinguisher. But so my name is Marc Spooner, and I've been asked to moderate today's session. It's an open forum with the President and with each of you to discuss the matters of the university. Included in these discussions, in all likelihood, will be the APR, the budget, the strategic plan on teaching and learning. Although those are maybe some of the foci for today, any topics are open for discussion. So I'm hoping that we talk as a family, as I said, about our concerns, but then also about possible opportunities and what we want to see happen on our campus, since after all, this is our campus together. I've been asked to moderate. I'm a faculty member. I'm an associate professor in education, and some of you may know me from the listserv. But today I won't be asking so many questions or asking you to ask, I'll be more asking you to ask questions instead. So my role today is to facilitate the discussion, to moderate, to keep the discussion moving along, and to ensure that everyone has a voice here that wants to be heard. The loose agenda for today will be that President Timmons will be asked to make a brief introductory remarks. Then we'll jump right into the question and answer session, which will last approximately 2 hours, and then we'll have some closing remarks. And again, that's a loose time frame depending on the amount of participation from you. There are microphones in the aisles, so I want to remind, I noticed quite a few people have sat upstairs. If you want to sit in the balcony, that's your choice, but in order to ask questions, we ask that you come to the microphones and introduce yourself. That way, the session is being recorded both on video for people who can't attend today, and also there is a minute keeper, so to speak, or an unofficial record being kept as well. So in order for the speaking to work well, I invite IRFA members, APT, QP, and out of scope. You'll all have opportunities to speak, and we'll try to take turns in that regard and ensure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard. So like I said, notes are being taken, and it is being videotaped. The location of that video, that URL will be given at some future date. So we didn't come here to hear me, so let's get started and have President Timmons come up and give her introductory remarks.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I'm going to the short podium. So thank you, Mark, and I really appreciate you facilitating this for us today. And thank you, everyone, for coming. I will say it's very hard for me to see you because it feels like I'm under the lights, but before I got up on this stage, I glanced around and it looks like there's great employee representation. And I really hope you come here today to give me your honest, frank opinions, concerns, and issues. And I'm here to do that. The purpose of today, as I want to echo what Mark said, is to engage together. This is a collegial institution, and there's been a long history of that here. It's our university, a place where we all have a vested interest in its success, where we all play an important role in not only the success of the students, but not only the success of the institution, but most important, the success of our students. You all deserve to be heard and have an input that's carefully considered and acted upon. So that's a purpose of this today. This dialogue is primarily for faculty and staff. It's a way to discuss how we carry out our academic mission for our students, a way to raise and continue to discuss issues. At the last session I spoke to faculty, I made a commitment to be open, transparent with you, and this is part of that process for you. And it's just as important for us to discuss our plans and hopes for the future. I just want to let you know that I will not be making any commitments here on today. I think everything you present to me we'll take back, we will summarize, and we will take under consideration. It would not be good management to make a commitment that I haven't looked at all sides of an issue. And some of the commitments you may ask me may be counter what other people have asked me or will ask me. So I want to let you know my job here today is to listen to you, to hear what you have to say, and then to take it under consideration. I also, if students are here today, I want to acknowledge that many students are employees of the university as grad assistants and also working in various enterprises. And so, although this is an employee-oriented event, I would want to encourage students also to participate, but the primary focus is the employees. I received a letter before Christmas from over 200 faculty members. It was November 27th, and you asked me to do 4 things: freeze admin hiring and salary increases, develop a 3-year plan for reducing the cost of university administration, develop a 3-year plan for restoring the academic mission, return to the practice of publishing an annual budget book. My response was that all of these issues are going to be taken under consideration, and I can speak to any of them today. The other thing I did do is that letter is in front of the Board of Governors. The Board of Governors do know about the requests that have been made to us. Some of these requests I do not have the independence to implement. It is done in terms of our governance with and through our board. As I said earlier, all of us have a role in fulfilling our university academic mission. And my role as president is a bit like A. Bartlett Giamanti said. He was a former commissioner of the Major League Baseball and a former president of Yale University. And he said that on some days, he said, I view the job of a president as directing an orchestra. And I like that analogy, the idea of being a conductor. I didn't write the piece of music. I don't perform. And you would say, thank goodness for that. But often are responsible for guiding the interpretation, making sure as much as possible you keep everybody in time and in tune. And I might be in the front at times, but everyone is there together, and a successful performance depends on the musicians. So I hope that that is a good example of how I view the management of the university. Though he did also say that on other days, the role of the president is more like a clutch, engaging the engine to effect forward motion while taking greater friction. And that I really can relate to that analogy. So today I'm here as a conductor and as a clutch. And as a conductor, I want to hear how to best guide this orchestra, this wonderful institution in which we are all part. And as a clutch, I anticipate you're going to put some heat on me, and hopefully that will help move this institution forward. So I'm looking forward to a productive discussion, and I hope you can voice your concerns. You have all, I assume, have heard about the announced layoffs and cuts at the University of Saskatchewan. I want to make clear to you that we are looking at the same percentage of cuts here at the University of Regina, the same challenges that they have there, and we have approached it differently. We have been, for the last 24 months, looking constantly at efficiencies, trying through attrition to manage as best we can. I'll give a very, very simple example. We had last year a director's position at the administrative side that was leaving the university, and so we did not replace that position, and another director assumed all that responsibility. And these are 2 distinct areas, custodial services and security. And now we have one person, Pat Patton, that's assuming both responsibilities. So we have been doing that. We have, as you know, many faculty here through attrition trying to manage it. So today we're not announcing 45 layoffs as U of S is. We have been working over the 24 months to manage the very same financial challenges in a different way, but they are still our challenges. And so I'm not making any of those kinds of announcements today, so I want to make sure that you all know that. So let's explore how we can better perform for our students, and I look forward to your thoughts, your concerns, your suggestions, and your input. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. As people come up to the microphone, maybe I'll get us started. I got a number of emails, as you can imagine, when this announcement came out. This one comes from a staff member in education, and he or she writes, we're being asked to find more efficiencies. Efficiencies isn't something you find, it's something you do. It's something I already do. The reason I came to work here instead of private industry was because I could read the university's mission statement without laughing. I'm not sure that's still true. And it was a longer email, but...
you want me to respond to that, Mark?
If you want to.
Yeah, I think efficiencies have been challenging for us and will continue to be. And I think all of us have to manage this university within the resources we have. One of our big challenges in this institution, and today I got some phone calls from reporters saying, you know, are you going to announce big layoffs? And why is the university having some fiscal challenges? Because we have not had cutbacks. I want to be clear that last year we had a 1.8 increase in our operating budget. This year we're hoping to have a similar one, but our costs are more. And not our costs, just employee raises. We've had a 15% increase in our student population in the last 4 years. But even more important, the diversity of our student population has changed. We have more graduate students. We have more students with disabilities. We have more international students. We have more Aboriginal students. We have more students with mental health issues. We have a lot more diversity on our campus, and all of those students require more enhanced support. And so you're trying to manage a growth in an institution at the same time when you're trying to be efficient. And it is a constant struggle and challenge. So I would say to the staff member, I absolutely empathize. That struggle I experience all the time. That's my job, is to manage that as best I can.
All right, so this is our forum. If you want to come up to the microphones and express your concerns or your hopes, or whatever you feel like commenting on or questioning. I think I make this joke every time, but my training in education has taught me to leave wait time. So.
Hi, Michael.
Hello. Perhaps it's appropriate that we start this off because I want to bring up once again the problem of academic freedom and make a couple of points that I've not made before. The first one is, I think it's very interesting that President Harry Arthurs, who gave a talk on October the 5th, 1995 to AUCC, came out completely and resolutely opposed to the AUCC position. And I just want to read one paragraph that he wrote. He said, "Let me begin my defense of my position by making explicit what is clearly its implicit major premise. Academic freedom is a central, arguably the central value of university life. Anything which interferes with it has to be justified by reference to prior or higher values. I can think of very few, other than perhaps the protection of human life. Certainly not institutional solidarity, certainly not institutional reputation." So I'd like to do two things. The first one is that I recognize that you have publicly supported academic freedom in the past. I was on executive of council when there was the business with the HERO grants, and there were a number of professors that were opposed to it. And I heard you say that you supported academic freedom, so I'd like to thank you for that. And I want to say that I value that. My concern is in two other ways. Firstly, we don't know that future presidents or administrators at this university are going to be similarly concerned about academic freedom. It's entirely conceivable that we might get a president or administrator in the future that is opposed to it. And so what we need to do now is we need to set up, almost like in a constitution, but with a collective agreement, that academic freedom will be supported not only in the classroom and not only in research, but in the extramural things such as public speaking outside of the university and also our roles as being on committees here. It's important that we do that because we can't predict the contingencies that are going to happen in the future. And the reason that we put these things in writing is so that when administrations change, that these rights are still protected. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I actually agree with Michael totally. And right now, it's part of the discussions, I know, in our collective agreement deliberations.
Next question.
Hi, Mike.
My name is Mike Young. I currently work with Ursu, and Ursu completely agrees with, Michael, agree with Michael's point. We have Ursu members who actually do teaching as sessionals, and so we consider that to be part of our responsibility to protect the academic freedom of our members. So we thank you for that comment. The question I have is, there was a letter that I read in the CBC that had come out and had raised questions about whether or not the university was expanding in order to meet demand. Some of the bureaucratic positions, APT positions and other things, without a corresponding increase in faculty. That the academic mission of the university was not being grown in the same way that the other things are being grown, and that, in fact, some of the bureaucratic and administrative tasks were being grown at the expense of the academy, given that the number of professors that we've had in the past 10 years hasn't increased in terms of tenure positions, but other positions within the university have increased. So I guess my question would be, what is the university going to do to bring the number of tenured faculty positions up to par with the growth of the university? Given that we have way more students, there should be more tenured faculty positions, and what the university going to do about that, if anything?
Well, through attrition, we've been attempting to balance the challenges. I will say that some of the administrative growth that we've had at this institution are because of regulations that are outside our control. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we didn't need the same health and safety officers. We didn't need the same financial oversight in terms of, and I'll be quite open, we had to get a full-time financial person this year because of tri-council regulations, which the tri-council research is to support faculty. So many of the admin positions and in the faculties have been to support the enterprise and to support faculty members. So we have a challenge there. Administration isn't completely separate from faculty. They're often put in place to support and enable faculty to get their work done. So what we're doing is trying very much to handle through vacancy management, looking at attrition. Last year we had layoffs at the end of the year. They were in the administrative areas. We're attempting to manage the growth and the tenure. When we look at reinvesting any monies, we are putting it as much as possible into frontline teaching in areas that need it.
Increasing the number of positions in total, because when 10 years ago we had something like 10,000 students, now we have something like 13,000. It seems to me that the number of total tenured faculty positions should increase. And it's not enough to merely play a sort of a faculty shell game where we kind of move things around. There needs to be an increase, and if that has to happen at the expense of administration, the Students' Union wonders whether or not that's something that's possible, an increase in the number of tenured faculty positions.
Well, I think it's more than just at the expense of administration. Administration and faculty are not always separate. Administration and the people that work in those roles, the men and women that provide administrative support, do it to enable faculty to get their jobs done. So we're watching it. We're attempting to, in any of the layoffs we have to make, it's happening. It happened already last year in the administrative ranks, and that is the area that we're attempting to see how much flexibility we have in a very humane, thoughtful process forward, so that in terms of reducing costs.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Frédéric Dupré, and when you arrived first as president, you came with the motto, stronger with the community. And for us as the Institut Français, where I work since the last 12 years, that was really promising and really inspiring, because we have been leading community engagement projects since the beginning. And we have built a powerful relationship with the Francescois community, the Francophone community of Saskatchewan. I created a project that are leading in many ways in intercultural relations and other aspects of the needs of that community. And we even have developed programs that we wanted to implement it. And at the beginning, the project was going well, and you even created a task force when Lynn Wells was there as VP. And it was a great proposal that came out, and the community was backing it. The Institute was great about it. I think the governments were also really interested, and that it was broken. And since the last 2 years, there's a new task force working right now. The connection with the community is broken. The discussion has been has been restarted, but as I heard, they're not going really well. We have no clue of the vision for the Institut Français or any program in French on campus. And it's been really a difficult situation for the Institute and the community that has been working with this university since '68, probably. So I just want to understand what is in back of that, because there was something great coming on, and now it's going in limbo, and we don't know where we're going. And it is difficult for us as a team and the community that's really frustrated with the university right now about this.
Everything you're saying is accurate. Hopefully, except the last piece, I have a different interpretation of. The Institut Français is a fabulous example of how our university can connect with community, and they are a leading example in the wonderful connections you've made, the Institute has made, and a source of pride for our institution. What our challenge is, as we go forward, is where is the role of French language education at this institution? And you're correct, there were recommendations that came forward that would have been very challenging to implement. And we did have to take a step back and review where we're going. We've set up this new task force. I have great hopes for this task force. And the task force doesn't have this is where we're going, this is what we're going to be like. We've asked that task force to be open-minded, to listen, to do consultations, and then to provide us as a university administration with a recommendation. So we've tried to be hands-off as much as possible and allow the task force to naturally, through consultations, come with recommendations. And it's a presidential task force, so it reports to me and provides the recommendations to me. And I think setting up a presidential task force, I would hope, shows how important I feel the future of the Institut Français is to this campus. And so everything you've said in terms of the cycle has gone. My report back so far has been that the consultations have been going well, and I will look into your comments and that there's been some challenges. I have not heard that till today. So thank you for that, and I will ask some questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'd just like to revisit Mike's previous question because I don't feel it was accurately addressed. And it was still kind of unclear for me. So yes or no, is it possible to increase the number of tenured faculty positions in the state we are in currently?
It's always possible to increase any employee group on a campus. Well, is it going to happen here? Remember I said I'm not going to make any commitments while I'm up here. So the answer is that I'm not going to answer that question. But I will say it's very complex. The only place we have resources is from employees pretty well. Our discretionary is, and people and faculties know that. That's where we've taken everything we can out of. So we're at the point that if we're going to put big investments in hiring tenured faculty, we will have to institute what you're hearing at other institutions, which are massive layoffs, versus trying to naturalistic manage it through attrition. That means we're bound by union contracts, so it's not as simple as saying, okay, we're just going to get rid of this group of people, so can we reinvest then? We have all kinds of processes that we have to follow. We have severances we would have to implement. And so we're attempting to manage this university in a humane process, taking advantage of every opportunity that comes our way. We'll do that this year because we've asked each unit to look at a 3% tightening. And I think this will be the last year we'll be able to go that route, but that's what we're doing this year. So at this time, I do not have the resources to invest in large increases in tenured faculty.
Okay.
If resources are freed up, that is the first priority for us.
Great, thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm John Klein.
Hi, John.
Last time you had one of these forums, I commented on sustainability issues, so I'd just like a quick update from your perspective of how you see things. As far as the whole project of making our university more sustainable, I see it as beginning maybe even in the early 1990s, so we're coming up on 2 decades of work at it, and it isn't moved along in some areas with the kind of urgency that I'd like to see.
I think, John, we've been distracted a little bit by some of the fiscal challenges we've been facing. I know that we have a sustainability task force that is still meeting and moving forward with initiatives. I don't know if the provost is here, and you chair the task force. Do you want to just make a couple of comments about where it's at?
John
thanks.
Okay,
I
John?
also I wrote the Premier and Minister of Education asking what their thoughts were on. You said that they were telling the university to find efficiencies, and my position was that they aren't necessarily giving us the resources needed to create or find those efficiencies. Their response to that was that they think pretty much that they're giving the university enough, and that it's a university decision to move forward with sustainability projects.
That's interesting. I will say, and this is fact out there, that in terms of GDP, Saskatchewan is 9th in the country in terms of the money it spends on post-secondary education. Just a fact that I presented to the Premier and to the Minister on an ongoing basis. They may feel that that's enough for a post-secondary system. I'd like to see, as a HAB province, us being much closer to the 1, 2, 3, or 4. I will say that the province has not cut universities as they have in other provinces. So that's a positive thing. Nova Scotia now, they're up to a 10%, 3 years in a row, cuts to their campus. So we're in a bit of a challenge because they're still investing in us, right? And yet, overall, the post-secondary funding, in terms of ranking nationally, we're 9th.
I'm going to alternate. Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to alternate mics.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks, Vianne and Marc, for doing this today. I sort of sprung up when you referred to our funding and relative to other provinces, because my question relates to that. I've been working at the U of R for 3.5 years. I really enjoy working here. This is an era of prosperity in Saskatchewan, but in the last at least 2 years that I remember, there's been a threat of zero increase to the U of R and the U of S, and what I've observed on campus is leads to a lot of anxiety. I imagine it's fairly difficult on your leadership team as well on a year-to-year basis, but employees, a lot of anxiety they experience. My question for you, and I don't know if you can answer it because it's a political question, is why is there a threat of a zero increase in this province when we are experiencing prosperity? And is there something we can do differently to remove that threat, because it creates a lot of anxiety, instability?
You can sell potash, because that seems to be one of the big challenges, is that we didn't get the contracts with China and India that the government anticipated in its budget projections. And so their provincial revenues, there was before Christmas great nervousness that they take great pride in our province, our government does, in having a balanced budget. And when I met with the minister, which I do regularly and which I appeal all the time for more funding for post-secondary education, he did say to us that this province was right now worried about the ability to have a balanced budget this year because they had not secured any of the potash contracts. Now, they just secured one right after Christmas, Ian, right, with China. So we may see that shift a bit, but it is a province that says it has a balanced budget last year, and they want to ensure they have it this year without that balanced budget is based on projected revenues that they did not see materialize as they speculated they would. So I see a real conservatism in fiscally pulling in from the province. I don't know if that helps. What can we do? I think the one thing we have to do is keep speaking about the value of investing in post-secondary education, that we are an economic driver for this province, and repeat that over and over again. I don't think it has. One of the things that the minister did indicate to me is that they are attempting to go, they may be going out with a campaign talking about their investments in post-secondary education. So when we as an institution, as a university, articulate solutions like, and I'll be quite candid, we should just cut administration, the questions I get is, are you bloated? Are you mismanaging money? And that doesn't serve my advocacy well in terms of going to the province and saying, we need more of an investment in post-secondary education. So I need to shift that conversation so that we show the value of post-secondary education and how we as a university, and we are a huge economic driver for this province. All you have to do is read the Conference Board of Canada report, and everything you cite should talk about that, because every time I speak to the province, I cite the figures in that report, and I stress, they want to have a prosperous province. We are one of the main vehicles to get them there. And I need your help to do that. I can't do it by myself. I really need your help.
Thanks for waiting.
No problem. A couple of clarifications. The first one, President Timmons, you characterized the first request in the letter, of which I was proud to be one of the signatories, as calling for a freeze on administrative salary increases. But of course, what the letter in fact spoke to was non-contractual salary increases and bonuses. And I would hate for any of my APT and QP and out-of-scope colleagues to think that we were calling for salary freezes when in fact we weren't. They were non-contractual very specifically, and I did want to make that point today. The second point I wanted to make, maybe this is also by way of a clarification, but it is part of a question. Since 2008, the provincial government has increased the operating grant of the University of Regina from $79,679,000 to $101,506,000. That's an increase of well over $21 million. I think it comes out to 27.4%, but I'm an English prof. You might want to check my math. Since the same time, tuition revenues at the University of Regina, because of the lift of cap on those revenues, have increased from over $40 million to $58.5 million. And I bring these figures up for very specific reasons. My concern is twofold, I guess. First is that as you continue to lobby, as is your job, the government for increased funding to us, they know how much money they have been giving us. The provincial government recognizes that the increases they have been giving us since 2008 are unprecedented, and that our funding has been going up dramatically since 2008. They are quite probably also aware that in the times, for example, 2008, 2009, when they were increasing our operating budget by over $5 million, that some of the faculties, my own faculty, the Faculty of Arts, for example, took cuts. How, given the dramatic degree to which they have not only increased our operating grant, but permitted us to raise tuition to increase our operating budget still further, how do you see it functioning strategically to argue that they are underfunding us? Aren't you a little bit concerned that if no matter what they give us, we continue to argue that we're being underfunded? They'll think, well, why would we give you any increase at all?
No, no. I'm not concerned about arguing that we're not underfunded. We're 9th in the country in funding in post-secondary education in this province. That's 4th from the bottom. That's 9th in the country. So I would look at that. When you look at the costs, in particular employee cost increases over that same period of time, you will find that it actually is in excess of the funding we received. So that's our challenge. And I'm not apologizing for that. I think, you know, overall that we have fabulous employees on this campus and we need to honor them. And I went to the wall for that and will continue to do so. So our costs have, for us to have a balanced budget, no additional initiatives this year, we needed around a 5%. When you get a 2% or a 1%, you have to find efficiencies and you have to cut costs. And so that's what we're doing. Plus, we've had a 15% student growth in that time. And as I mentioned, the diversity of our student population has changed dramatically. So I don't apologize for the reasons that we're in a bit of a challenge in terms of finances. It's for very good reasons that we're there. And the costs of this institution have increased more than the revenues we've received. And I want to just say, Susan, I think it's really important for faculty, as you did, you mobilized faculty to write their concerns, and I want to thank you for that. Having people engaged and challenging us is a good thing, and I hope and encourage you to continue to do so.
Hi, President Timmons. According to Maclean's magazine, The University of Regina funding operating grant per student is second in the comprehensive university category, 11th of all universities in Canada. So first question is, do you think it's a better statistic is post-secondary spending versus GDP or operating grant per student?
That operating grant per student included all of federated colleges, including First Nations University, which has a budget of over $20 million for a small number of students. Money well spent, by the way, but it skewed our operating budget number. We looked at tuition and government grant per student and compared it to our comprehensive universities without the federated colleges input, and we are not second in the country. So every one of these figures have challenges. That's why it's, it's easy to say at times, well, look, we're second in the country. But when you get into it and you look at where the numbers are, there's some complexities in those numbers. But when we remove the federated colleges funding from that and the number of students, we drop considerably. Do I want to do that in Maclean's? No, because it helps our rankings that were there. So it's a real challenge when we compare apples and apples and apples and oranges. So, Mike, that's what I would say.
Which is the more accurate reflection of the government's funding, though? Is it the GDP? Because I could say about GDP that our GDP's gone up because of a resource boom.
That's right.
So that's why we're 9th. It's not because we're underfunding universities. It's because the economy is growing. So it's like, it's one of those things you need to balance off, which is an accurate reflection. The second piece is that I have heard at other public forums, the statistic used by the provost that 59% of the budget is now paid by the operating grant. Is that not only because tuitions had increased at a higher rate than the operating grant has been increased since the tuition freeze was lifted?
No, I don't think so. We're 57% of our, I think it's actually 57 right now, that's government grant. 70% of U of S's whole operating budget is government grant.
So that's what the comparison's made, because it's said it's an all-time low, making it sound like the government has cut funding, but it hasn't.
No,
every year they've been in power, the operating budget has increased.
The government has not cut funding. You're absolutely right, Mike.
Last follow-up, Mike.
Okay, about duplication in administrative services. Do you think it's sufficient to have 3 admissions offices on campus, 2 recruitment offices, plus recruiters in the faculty? When we're talking about administrative cutbacks, is there not some places where we duplicate services because of decisions made over the long term that have led to additional administrative positions?
We're looking carefully at that. I'm sure there's areas of duplication that we can become even more efficient at. And that's part of the process we've been undertaking for the last 24 months. And I see us continuing to do so.
Hi, Garth Pickard.
Hi, Garth.
I'd just like to comment on a previous observation about the sustainability issue on the campus. It isn't. We do now have a President's Advisory Committee on sustainability, which Tom chairs, and it also has a seat on that advisory committee from the United Nations University Regional Center of Expertise on Education, and the U of R has taken a leadership role. It's starting to show its leadership role not only locally but globally as well. So it's a very positive thing that the university is taking a major step in that regard. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Thanks, Garth.
Hi, I'm Chris Yost from Biology.
Hi, Chris.
So I guess my questions have an overlying theme in transparency, and you've spoken about transparency. So it's going to touch upon, there's item 4, I think, in that letter, had to do with opening the budget book and giving more transparency. I think a lot of the issues, a lot of the hallway conversations that result in speculation is because we simply don't have the data. I think transparency is extremely important, so my first question will be about that, but I do also want to ask a question again about transparency. You mentioned in this today again, and we've heard it many times, this flat 3% cut across the board. And so I'm very curious, and I apologize if I've missed how this was, if this rationale was discussed or if it's presented somewhere. I'm very curious how you decide to make a 3% cut across. To me, that doesn't sound like something that was very rationally planned, because I suspect There's different areas. Some areas could weather a 3% cut. Other areas, I would argue, can't weather a 3% cut. Maybe some areas, you talk about efficiency, could weather a 10%. And yet we have this idea that everyone has to cut the same. So I'd be interested in both those, where we're at with that request at step 4. I recognize that may be a Board of Governors thing, but I want to hear from you how that's moving forward. The second one is I want to hear about how that 3% decision was reached. And I guess finally, you don't have to, but I do have an existential question, because this is something that's happened long before you were here. And that has to do with the numbers. See, when I look at at a university, I see academics and research. So I see vice presidents of academics and vice presidents of research. I see that very clearly. But what I've seen across Canada is that we continue to have more positions, and I'm not clear to me how those positions, I mean, I can see managers, I can see operators, I can see directors. But if we look at academics and research as our core, then I'd be interested in your, and as I say, you don't have to answer that one, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay, so let me talk first about the budget. And the request was to return to the practice of publishing an annual budget book with all allocations, salaries, costs, and justification. As we become a more complex institution, we actually have multiple budget books, and they are fluid through the year. They change. Halfway through the year, we change all of our budget projections based on input from faculty, money spent. So the way the budget is done is the first budget is projections, because you don't know actuals, and then it's quite a fluid process. Technology has helped us be able to do that. So we don't have a budget book that is sort of a Bible budget. We have a series of changes to the budget based on actuals, ins and outs, changes all the time, trying to keep a more accurate from day-to-day analysis. What we have made a commitment, and through AGP, we're attempting to say what exactly is a budget information you require and you want to help with decision making, and we're producing each piece as we're asked. And that piece would be as of the fluid budget book, right? It's as of now the most accurate information we gave. So if we gave our budget book to you, or we can give you the budget we asked for and laid out and we speculated 8 months ago, is not the budget we're working with today. So it's not as simple as saying here is the budget book and that's totally accurate. It changes all the time. So in terms of transparency, through AGP, trying to manage all the requests that we could possibly get on budgets, we're going to use that committee to ask, so what are the specific questions you have, and here's the information. So attempt to deal with all of those requests that way. The second thing you asked is what made us do the 3% across. Well, we need to find $5 million to have a balanced budget. We are doing, Chris, a little bit of what you're saying and not exactly. We asked for 3% across the board, and what we're doing is reinvesting 1% back into areas. So, for example, we have had a huge demand on our business school and our business faculty, and we are attempting to try to meet that demand by investing in the business school. They also require a certain percentage of tenured faculty, as does engineering, for accreditation. And business is very interested in getting accreditation. We want to enable that to happen. So even though it's across the board, we built in the last year in particular a reinvestment strategy, and that's what we're continuing this year. We don't know if we can do that again next year because things are so tight. And you're right, some units cannot find it, and so then we have to look carefully at that. So we're looking at our budget submissions now with a very open mind to looking at where investments are required and what we could do. The commitment is that any reinvestment is to support frontline teaching that we make. And the third comment you made was the massive number of VPs we have on this campus, which are 4. One is research, one is academic, one is external relations. I will say that for every 6 cents we spend in terms of external relations, we get $10 back. So for every $6 we spent, we get $100 back. So through our fundraising endeavors have increased dramatically, and that whole unit is a net revenue to this campus. And I can cut that unit. Again, why would I do that when we actually reap the benefits in terms of monies back? And we did do that analysis for every expenditures in that unit. What do we get back in terms of fundraising? And if it was anything different, we would have a different decision. But we're still with that happening, we are looking at efficiencies within that whole unit. And the fourth is administration, and we have a big we have a big budget. We have a big campus. We have lots of demands, and so that is our fourth VP that manages a very large portfolio of administration. So you can say, do I agree that we should have 4? I inherited 4. They work very, very, very hard for this campus, and I'll keep moving forward the best I can with the structure I have.
Thank you.
And I have a point of clarification. I know you said you wouldn't make any commitments today at this forum up here on stage, which makes sense to me perhaps, but...
Perhaps.
Well, it does. But what I do want to hear from you is that might you make some commitments in some follow-up response to today?
If there are things I'm specifically asked to do, I will do so, yeah, that I can, yeah.
Right.
And that's why we're taking notes and saying what are the follow-ups that are required.
Hello, my name is Corey Butts. I'm with the Faculty of Science. I'd like to point out that in 2011, the University of Alberta switched to Google Apps for Education. The University of Alberta listed many reasons why they made this switch. All of them still apply to the U of R. One of these reasons is that the annual cost for this service is $0. So since a university should focus on research and teaching and the administration of research and teaching, I strongly suggest that the U of R consider switching to Google Apps.
Thank you.
Tansy, bonjour, hello. My name is Patrick Lewis. I'm in early childhood education in the Faculty of Education. Thank you for coming here today, Vianne and Marc. Thank you for organizing this. I have a broader concern, really, and in the introduction today and some of the discussion, I perceive 2 narratives have emerged. One is about efficiencies or system theory logic, and the other one is about family and collegiality and our university. And they're 2 narratives that I think can't work together very well, or they certainly don't come together very well. And my real concern is about my perception that what's been happening recently here around budget and the academic program review, and that it's starting to foment a community or culture of fear. And a really good example of this earlier last week, late last week, I had a meeting, and it's happened 3 times now in the last couple of weeks at meetings outside of the university. I've been asked pointed questions by people because they've heard that the fine arts program at the U of R is going to be eliminated, or other programs are going to disappear. And I'm hoping today is the beginning, by you being here, even though you haven't, you said you won't commit to anything, but I think by you being here today, I'm hopeful that you're committing to more transparency and to provide more information, not only in our community here at the university, but the broader community, so that these rumors and concerns don't begin to grow bigger than they already are.
Yeah. Patrick, I agree totally with you. It's been a real challenge this year in particular, managing, and I think you're right, having a culture of collegiality and look for efficiencies often are in conflict, and a real challenge, for me in terms of really being concerned about morale on campus and moving forward at the same time, recognizing that I have a responsibility in terms of fiscally managing the institution. So I absolutely agree. I will attempt to be more public as much as I can. I did write an editorial or an opinion ed piece for the local paper about the value of the fine arts for the Leader Post, and trying to say that that was important because I heard the same concerns you heard. And I will continue to try to respond to them without getting defensive or that. But I will commit to you today here that as long as I am president of this university, we will have fine arts programs here in this university. So that is a commitment. I will make today, and it's a commitment I made to my colleagues in fine arts when I met with them. So there are some commitments I can actually make, that's one. But I've heard the same concerns, the worries that you've had, and particularly on this campus. And it is challenging, and I'll do my best to deal with them and to confront misinformation that's out there.
Thank you.
What time are we meeting next week to do this again? No.
I'm just waiting for the next hour to move. Thursday we're meeting, right? On a forum on liberal arts, which I made a commitment to in the town hall, or the last forum that we did, that we would have an open campus discussion on the value of liberal arts, and that's happening on Thursday? So Thursday is the next time.
Right.
Before, but there seems to be space here. I'm not going to talk about academic freedom. What I want to ask is how your administration is going to manage thinking about short-term budget problems and long-term sustainability at the university, and I use the word sustainability not in its ecological term, but the usual one. To give you an example of what I mean, with the 3% cuts, faculties come at it with a number of different approaches. One of them might be that they get rid of TAs for a year, they get rid of sessionals for a year, or what have you. The problem with this is long-term thinking. And what I mean is that there are a number of people that I know that are an academic couple at this university. One of the partners has a 10-year stream job, and the other one is working as a sessional. And things are expensive. One of the things that surely must be important long-term to a university is keeping good faculty. I worry that we're going to lose good faculty because families simply can't afford to be here because they need both incomes. So that's just one kind of example of where a short-term decision can actually have long-term implications. I'll just give you two other examples. In my own department in English, the number of professors that are there now from when I first came is essentially half. This means that we simply cannot offer the type of program that we gave our students 10, 15 years ago. This is going to have long-term implications. Another thing, and this is very small, but you try to save money. What about getting rid of travel funds to go to conferences? Well, one of the things that you find is that when you go to conferences, you make contacts that produce publications. At least half of the publications I have are because of contacts that I've made at conferences. If there's no money to go to conferences, in the long term you'll find that the reputation of the University of Regina will simply sink because we can't do as much. So I guess what I'm interested in finding out is how do you somehow manage to think both things at once? Because both are necessary.
Michael, you have just voiced my dreams. I mean, that's what I think about all the time, is how to manage in this fiscal climate and yet have a university that grows and continues to be even better than it is today. It is something that keeps me awake at night. And you know, is there going to be a point we're going to lose valued faculty? And your example on the travel funds, when I was at the University of Prince Edward Island, in the 1990s, we had a 10% cut, and we cut all travel, and we impacted on our research productivity dramatically, which is not what we want to do. So though you asking me how I will manage that as I go through the future, sustainability of post-secondary education is an issue for every president in this country, and it's at every meeting I go to, it's discussed, and I haven't gotten it, not one person has come up with a really easy solution for it, and that every time you make a cut or remove a position, you have to think 3 or 4 years down the road, what's the impact of that? And sometimes it's a negative impact and you have no choice but to go that route. So all of those things we think about all the time, and I don't have an easy answer for you because that is the challenge I face, the challenge we face as we go through fiscal restraint. It is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm in the Department of Geography. I'm really glad to hear that you're concerned about morale and that you've committed to managing the effective cuts in ways that are humane. And for that reason, I was actually really, really saddened and disappointed by your this month, January 2013 message from the President. In that you wrote, and I quote, "I do want to highlight, however, that when we talk about, quote, cutting administrative staff, we are talking about people who have families and mortgages, etc." And I wondered why, I haven't heard actually at all in any of this discussion faculty or anybody else advocating for cutting administrative staff. And certainly we're all really concerned about the kinds of cuts that are happening at the University of Saskatchewan, and we really value especially our frontline administrative support staff. And I know that they are also worried. And I wondered why in your update you would choose to say that you're hearing people talking about cutting administrative staff. And I wondered, who is it that's talking about cutting administrative staff? It's certainly, I was also one of the signatories of the letter, and that was not at all the way I read it anyways. It was about freezing new administrative positions. Nobody's talking about cutting staff anywhere, and we really value all of our colleagues who are frontline administrators. So I wondered where you were getting that from.
I've heard a lot of comments on this campus about cutting administration. And what I've heard from administrative staff is worries that that means them. And so I have heard it. I've heard it in my office. People speak to me. I've heard it in a lot of support staff have asked me, are you anticipating big layoffs? I got it today from the media. So I hear it all the time, Emily, in my job. So if you haven't heard it, I would be surprised. I would think that most people here have heard people comment they should cut administration. Have you heard that? Have people heard that? Show me with hands if you've just heard that on this campus. Now, I mean,
administrative staff or administration?
And people have interpreted that. The administrative staff that I've talked to have interpreted as administrative staff, and that is exactly why I put that in the message. And if you read, what I've said is that is what I have heard from staff on this campus, and I have heard that. People have said to me they're worried, they're concerned about their jobs, and that is why I wrote that letter.
Well, yeah, I just want to go on the record saying that, a lot of the faculty who have been really, pointing out this issue of the imbalance between the academic mission and the rising administrative costs. What we're talking about is not firing people or laying anybody off.
So what are you talking about?
Well, you have a copy of the letter in your hand right there. None of the demands ask for firing anybody, and we would be really upset if the university were to take that course. So we're happy to hear that you're not following the path of the U of S, which already has and is talking about cutting more, laying off people.
Now,
in that
we
area.
laid off last year, Emily. We laid off administrative staff last year. So I want to be clear. I'm saying that I'm not doing a massive layoff now, but I have to manage the budget of this campus. And when you talk about freezing admin salary increases and freezing admin hiring, we have actually been under a hiring management process in which we don't hire any more positions unless there is an absolute necessity for it, and we've done that over the last 24 months. And that's how we've been able to manage a balanced budget now. But we may not be able to continue to do so, and we may have to get to a point, as we did last year, where we lay off. Where those layoffs are going to happen, if we have to do them, is admin staff, right? So but I still at the same time have to try to do it carefully, and every time we make a decision, we have to think about the people it affects and do it humanely. But I want to be clear that I can't commit here never to have another layoff on this campus. And I hope I did not give you that impression, because I can't do that. I'm saying that what we do, we're trying to do humanely and carefully, and we're trying to be fiscally responsible by doing it as best we can through attrition in a more naturalistic way. And we've been fairly successful in doing that, and yet we still had to do some layoffs last year, but they were under 10. They were a small number. And they were under 10.
The second thing is I just wanted to support what my colleague from science said. about the 3% across the board cut. And that is felt really, really unevenly. We've been involved in the Faculty of Arts in a long, long series of conversations that's taken up a lot of our time over the course of the last, well, since the summer. And what that actually means in our faculty is that we're not replacing any hires in the years to come. We have no idea when that's actually going to be lifted, but that means that some departments are literally under threat of dying. And that's my understanding anyways, is that those would be very different consequences if they're applied to other units in the university. So I think given the statistics around the administrative growth in the last 8 years, that we could afford to take more than 3% in some areas in the interests of equity. So in some faculties, they're not so much concerned about this 3% cut at all. It's barely, you know, they are having to cut, but those are things that they can part with. And in other faculties, it means actually decreasing the number of courses we offer. It means possibly amalgamating majors. It means shutting down departments. It means really grave consequences in certain areas. So I think some more thinking about equity is in order.
And I have not heard from any faculty that they found the 3% cut not painful. We were cut 50% in sustaining capital 2 years ago. We were given back a quarter of that last year. It has had a huge impact on our campus facilities. And even that didn't even rise as a priority when times were good. Well, now we have 51 roof leaks on this campus. Our physical plant people are really, as you heard, working very hard to manage this, but it is tough. We're not, in terms of sustaining capital and ability to replace equipment and to manage the physical plant, we're very challenged. And I do know that. I do know that when I put a bucket at Adham under the leaking roof and ask Dave Button, how can this be? I hear exactly why it is, because we don't have the resources to do it. And we'll see that. My worry is we're going to see that get worse and worse if we don't do something dramatic. Yeah. And it's nice to see, actually, some of the staff speak, and I hope you do feel comfortable to speak, because we've heard a lot from our faculty, but I hope our staff will speak too.
Hi, my name's Carla. I'm from the Career Center, so as an admin staff. It's hard not to take some of the comments personally as an APT member, but I really couldn't help sitting any longer when I heard comments saying that we need, we currently are a really lean institution, because it wasn't very long ago that there was an article on CBC nationally that pointed out the huge amount of administrative, and I think a lot of people signing the agreement, or signing the petition, likely would have been thinking the cost of administration that people are concerned about is the difference in those high administrative positions from all of the rest of the staff on this campus. And that's what I think is something that we're all waiting and not speaking about, but one of the biggest issues is that difference, and are you personally deciding not to take that 70 grand bonus for a year?
Well, let me be clear. I did not get offered a 70 grand bonus last year, so I want to be clear about that. And our admin staff, our VPs, and even at the presidential level, I have a contract that's managed by the board, and I will be in discussions about recognizing the fiscal challenge of this institution and what they decide to do with me. But we are not highly paid compared to other admin staff in this country. So I want to be clear on that. And we actually try very hard to keep it manageable. Also, for you, the increases to it out of scope, in particular staff, over the last couple of years has been less than the increases to faculty. So we've been trying to manage those costs and those increases very, very carefully as we go forward. I've been very open about what my contract is, and I am aware of the backlash about how you feel about what I'm paid, and I am aware of that, and I will be in discussions with the board about that when the time comes. But I do not set my salary. That is done by your Board of Governors. And they are aware of your concerns, because I've told them yet. Yeah.
Hi, Jennifer Green with Kinesiology and Health Studies. I just wanted to reiterate, and I'm glad that you've recognized that there is a lot of anxiety at the staff level. I'll reiterate a comment that I made at one of our last gatherings with regards to the academic program review, budget, collective bargaining, all of this coming together. Any opportunity that there is in consultation, in task force and committee to include staff members who are very invested in this institution to be part of that, I hope that you do take it upon the opportunity to do so. There is the feeling that a lot of the momentum and push is the academic side of the bus, and at times I think we're the wheels on the bus. And so I encourage us to work together to try and accomplish some of these challenges, or I guess deal with some of these challenges ahead of us. I know that as an IRFA member for APT as well, members have brought forward concerns that I have also taken to the committee there, and the feeling of divide and separation. And so I actually appreciated your comments in January, because there was a lot of concern at the APT level that letter that did go public. The tone, I guess it was it became very protectionist. And so for you to articulate, and for other academics here today to articulate that was not the intent, I think it's just very important that we be aware of how we move forward with this together. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Good afternoon. Pierre-Philippe Ouimet from Physics. So I have to admit I was a little late to the meeting here because I was teaching. I did not want to cancel classes to come to a meeting. I think that wouldn't have been appropriate. But again, I suppose I will share my tale of woe. There will be a question at the end. So
I'll make sure. No.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. First thing I would like to point out is the U of R is one of my alma maters. I have my PhD from this institution. So when I first came to the Department of Physics here in 1998, there were 11 faculty members with research programs and graduate students. And it was a very healthy academic environment, and one that allowed me to move forward with research and to do a PhD, which is the equal of any other PhD anywhere else in the world. And indeed, as part of my PhD studies here, I spent 6 months working at the Technical University of Munich in Munich, Germany. What I saw there was what I was getting here. So certainly a world-class institution, and the U of R was able to give me a world-class education. Now I see a very different picture looking at my department. I have a faculty position here. It's a lecturer position. The number of research active faculty has shrunk dramatically. Again, we are half what we were. And I'm looking at our PhD programs. I'm looking at our research programs. I'm not seeing the same level of quality being offered to the graduate students that are coming in now, to the students who are coming in now, despite the fact that we're doing our best. So I realize that physics does not have a huge number of students. We've never had a huge number of students, nor are other physics departments elsewhere in other universities blessed with huge numbers of students. So my question is as follows. Can we, at some point, get into a discussion as to how units who have small numbers of students but who make big research contributions, how we can contribute to this university and still be sustainable? Because we're in a situation where I see my future as joining the math department. because I see the physics department shutting down in the next couple of years. We're not going to be able to offer any kind of physics program. And I also see, and I could be completely wrong, this is maybe an emotional response, but I see myself as being trapped here. Because my PhD degree, if I try to go to another institution and they say, what happened to your department? It was shut down. Why was it? Clearly it mustn't have been very good. So why should we hire you? Okay? So I see myself as being trapped here. I see myself as being in a situation where I'm being squeezed out of my own discipline. Okay? So is there a way that we can move forward? Can we build back our numbers to a sustainable level? Is there a way of doing it, or what's my future? Thank you.
Thank you. And you're asking me the question about what, can we do that? And under this fiscal challenges, it would be very difficult to do that. I don't know what will happen 5 years from now. And I do know of the quality of the research the physics department does. They do amazing research. So, you know, I do understand. And I'm hearing you say, you know, what can we do? And I don't have an answer for you, but it's a discussion that we'd hoped would emerge through the academic program review, and I think there's still space and time for that to happen.
If I could follow up, I mean, I do appreciate the answer. I mean, one of the things we have done, and indeed I owe this is my job, we've introduced people whose jobs it is to teach into the mix, because we recognize, you know, faculty are expensive. Yeah. And when you have a small number of students, you can't expect that everybody's going to be teaching a low number of classes. But the fact is, in order to be research competitive in physics, you need the time
to do that.
To do that research. And so part of what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring in people like myself who like to teach more than they like to do research. Not that I don't like to do research, it's part of what I like to do, but I love to teach. And I want to dedicate more of my time to teaching than to research. And so that's one of the things, one of the innovations that we've brought from other departments who are also doing that. So we're trying to change to meet with the time, but I mean, we would appreciate other ideas coming out too. And the academic program review, we try to engage in this, but well, we got very frustrated with it because we saw a large number of flaws. So just to give you an example, when the consultants report came out for physics in the comparator university, they got the NSERC data all wrong. Okay? Ridiculously wrong. So we had University of Guelph physics department being reported as having $0 in NSERC funding. That's absurd.
And you made the corrections, so.
Yeah, we made the corrections. Yeah. But the university spent $500,000 on this. Was that money well spent? That $500,000 would have paid for a faculty position in physics that we desperately need for 5 years. So, not 5 years. Well, not 5 years, okay. You're quite right. Somebody like me, for example, that would have paid my salary for 5 years, but you're correct, no. So, I mean, we would be open to feedback from the university admin. What does physics need to do to get more positions? Okay? We would be open to that. And can we expect some kind of feedback like that? Because we keep getting praised for some of the things we do, and then we ask for positions that we need in order to keep doing it, and we're told no. So can we have a discussion as to this?
Yes, I absolutely can have the discussions. And I mean, I don't know, is your dean here? Is Dean of Science here? I know those kinds of discussions are ongoing with the provost all the time, and they will continue. And that challenge you have, and what English said in terms of faculty shrinking, we're very aware of that. There's been a huge attempt over the last decade to try to find ways to facilitate faculty having time, as physics has needed, to do research through a variety of methods, and we're going to continue looking for new methods and ways to support the faculty in doing that. So there's no simple solution, but I think you're right. We need to engage in more conversation about it.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm Nick Ruddick, the head of the English department. Lots of people have just been talking about English, so I thought I'd better have my 2 cents as well. My colleague in physics worries about the future of his department, small faculty and small number of students. And he worries that the academic program review essentially is going to say something like, well, we can't afford this program anymore, let's get rid of it, let's save money by ditching it. In the case of the English department, as one of my colleagues said earlier, we have, I think, exactly half the number of permanent faculty that we had when I arrived here 30 years ago, when the University of Regina had about 5,000 students. Now, it's true we have many more programs now, but the thing is that English is a high-demand area. We teach a lot of students. Unlike physics, we teach 5,200 students a year. That's the number of students we taught in calendar 2012. We can only do that by having 3 out of every 5 classes taught by sessional instructors. And we were recently told that within the Faculty of Arts, the money for those sessional instructors was likely to disappear in a short period of time. So my question is, it's about your vision for the future. Really, that's what it boils down to. How do you see the University of Regina over the next 3 or 4 years? Let's not go farther than that. Essentially, are certain areas of the university, certain units, going to be allowed to dwindle and disappear? Because English clearly cannot continue to teach this number of students if we're not given the resources to do it. Will English disappear? Will physics disappear? Will other supposedly low-demand areas disappear? Though I don't think we are low-demand. And what will take their place? And why? So what's your vision for the next 3 or 4 years?
I'll share with you a vision, but my vision may change based on lots of practicalities that happen within the next 12 months, 6 months, 5 months. I think we will be challenged to keep going the way we are. And one of the comments was about, is physics going to disappear and become merged with math? When we look at admin costs, and that's one of the things the campus has asked us to look at, our structure on this campus is costly, with all of the different departments, department heads, associate deans, faculties. I would see that we take a really good look at the structure that we have and look not only in the academic side, also the admin side. And as we've been doing, and I mentioned, the one example that I used was, keeping 2 completely different departments, merging the administration and them together. I think we're going to have to look at much more interdisciplinary, more collegial relationships that help us manage the admin costs overall on this campus. So I'm committed to continually look at different options and ways to reduce that so that we can invest in the faculty that is so needed in so many areas. Because I don't see any other source of funds.
But which faculty are we going to invest in and why? That is to say, are we going to invest in English and physics because of their particular problems with maintaining their programs? Or are we going to invest in other areas, supposedly based upon student demands? Is student demand or supposed student demand the best way of planning for the future?
It's one of the metrics we have to take into consideration.
Sure,
but it will not be the only metric. It will not be the only one.
We're a comprehensive university with no rival for a couple of 100 miles in any direction. Shouldn't we be offering the kinds of programs that typically comprehensive universities offer? And doesn't that include English and physics and philosophy?
I would see programs continually being offered within possibly a different structure. But Nick, I want to be careful because most futurists I know get it wrong all the time. And I will not profess to be a futurist. And so I've learned over the years that things can change like that in terms of academia and the path you go on. But I do see us having an English program. I do see us having a physics program. They may be offered within different structures. And that's what I'm hoping this campus will engage in those discussions as we go forward in what those structures, and I think that discussion has begun, could possibly look like. And I don't think everyone's going to agree with everything you do. Any of you who are in a department or in a unit know that you're constantly always battling different opinions, often very good opinions that differ. So I would say your question is, will we have an English department in 3 years? Yes. Not an English, will we have an English program in 3 years? Yes. Will we have a departmental structure? I don't know what the structure is. But what I hope in the next 3 years, we have lots of discussions about different models and structures.
Thank you.
Okay?
We have a little bit of time left if you want to.
End? No.
It's coming. Now's your chance to get your questions in if you have them.
Hi, Kathy. I have them.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bethune. I'm in the geology department. Sorry, did I steal your position? Not good. Not a good move.
Blame the moderator.
We've heard a lot of commentary, but and I think that there is a great deal of anxiety because all of these issues are coming together, especially academic program review, in the context of issues with regard to administrative costs and the collective bargaining and so on. One thing I want to say is I'm glad to hear that you said that every time you see the minister that you're asking for more funding for post-secondary education. If you look at Alberta, when they were in an economic boom, they made significant investments in their universities, especially the University of Alberta. And so it's kind of disappointing to see that the same kind of philosophy isn't adopted here. And then I guess secondly, just going forward, I think from a faculty perspective, there is a concern about where University of Regina is positioning itself. So I think, at least from the Faculty of Science perspective, we're very worried about kind of going down or toward a primarily undergraduate model. And so I think most of the audience might have that concern. So it's almost, we're looking to you, the upper administration, to define where are we going, but at the same time, you're providing that overall leadership. I think you really need to listen to us, and especially your leading academics, as to where opportunities reside. And I think one problem facing University of Regina is we all know it's a great university. We believe in it, etc. But not a lot of people out there have that point of view. And so I think the university needs to better define where its strengths are, so that someone from elsewhere in the country maybe even would say, I really want to go to University of Regina for that program or for that area of study. So I'm just making a commentary that it's important to listen to your leading academics as to which directions you wish to pursue. At the same time, you have to obviously have a balance of where you might be making things smaller and where you might be making things bigger.
Thanks, Kathy.
I'm June LeDrew, and Craig, you said I could say I was from KHS, right? Yeah, okay. So I'm from KHS. I've been here 25 years, and I've seen quite a few things occur over the 25 years. About 20 years ago, we had budget cuts, and people lost their jobs here. at the university, and it was very traumatic. I remember in physical activity studies at the time to see our colleagues go home and not come back. It was difficult, and we also went through, or I went through, having 5 presidents in 5 years here. And I know it seems like we have a bit of a perfect storm, as you once said, occurring with all these things aligning that are going to cause us some challenges in the future. And I would just like to say thank you for weathering that storm with us, because it is going to be difficult. I don't think you have a magic ball. I don't have one. I don't think anyone's going to drop a house on you with the striped socks or anything. But we've all got to get through this together, and I think we can, and there'll be some bumps and some fear factor involved. But we will weather this storm, and I just want to say thanks for hanging in there.
Thanks, Jill. Mark, may I say, you know, it is a bit of a perfect storm in many ways. If it was today, even with our strategic plan, I'm not sure I would start an academic program review today. We started it when we had a better fiscal relationship with the government, and we started it under a different vice president academic, and our present provost inherited and has attempted to carry it through at the same time when all of these extra things have hit us. So it has, some of the stuff that we're challenged with has been because of circumstance and timing. And like I said, if I would not today, if you came to me today, Mark, and said we should do an academic program review under this present fiscal situation, I would say not today. So some of the stuff we're trying to manage with circumstances, and that kind of goes back to Nick, it's very hard within even 2 years out to predict where we're going to be and what we're going to do.
If I came to you today asking you if you do an open forum, would you still agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, Michelle.
Hi, I just wanted to echo the sentiment a couple of people already raised to thank Mark and yourself, President, for hosting this event. One of the most important things I think that's coming from it is actually bringing all the staff together and having us sit with all of our colleagues and talk through these issues, very important, and to clarify some of the intent or misunderstandings surrounding some of the language that's being used with regards to the difference between administrative staff and administration. That said, I also wanted to pick up on a comment from a colleague that was just asking, what do we imagine the reputation of our school to be, or what kind of image are we putting out to the public? And to ask, I don't know if other people have seen this. This is the Maclean's Canada's Best Schools. I picked this up the other day at Extra Foods. And I would ask that we start to think about the images that we are putting out of our school. The one-page ad that we decided to invest in, and some people might think this is great, I'm just going to raise my own concern, says, "Earn while you learn." It has our logo. It has kind of our look that we have, these kind of blank slates, very modest. And it's a picture of a backpack with $100 bills, hundreds of dollars of bills shoved inside of it, saying last year, University of Regina co-op students earned $8 million while they were still students. The facing page is of a student engaged in scientific research at SFU. And I think that we really need to think about the money that we're spending and the image that we want to put out for this school, because we do really important research in the sciences and in the social sciences, in the humanities, in the health sciences, across the entire campus. We do really good work, research, teaching, and social justice work. And I think that we can think about maybe a better brand than this kind of an image for our school. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. If any of you get the University Affairs magazine, you would see that we have been putting in research ads in there that highlight a number of our researchers. And so what we have done is look at the best place for the best ads. So we have not ignored the research. Maclean's is probably the #1 recruitment tool for parents that is out there. And we have done focus groups and work with students are choosing a university, and parents are supporting them in terms of a career outcome. Whether we agree or not, that's the fact. And we're attempting to try to match those. The ad may be inappropriate, may not be the best ad, but it's based on evidence that we're attempting to use to help with our investments in a very, very careful way. So Maclean's is probably that magazine that is not probably, is the magazine parents use to help their children make decisions on university. and parents of undergrad students are not interested and do not pick a university based on the research, but they do pick it on experiential learning and opportunities for students to do different things. I'm not justifying the ad, by the way. I'm just giving you some background. I will ask our external relations people to take a look at that ad and look at other ones and make sure that it meets the needs that they thought it would, and if not, that they pay attention to that. Okay, so thank you for that.
Yes.
Just really briefly, I'd like to add to, I guess I should introduce myself, Edward Dodd at the Carillon, opinionated, opinions editor. In any case, I just wanted to add to the image of the university. I'm a little concerned with where my department might be. I'm in history right now. In 5 years, I'm not even sure if it's going to be just a history department, if it's going to remain there, who's going to remain, because I know a lot of people are close to retirement and they're not going to be replaced under attrition. And I know that financial things will change in the future, but I think, speaking to the image, if we're starting to amalgamate departments and eliminate departments, it's sort of, for me going forward in my career, if I continue as an academic, that's going to reflect poorly on me elsewhere. People are going to look and say, well, your history department got shut down, it obviously wasn't very good. Or your history department is now part of English, philosophy, and physics. I don't know how they all got lumped together, but we're all part of that one giant department. So they're going to say, well, that's very specific. You obviously must care a lot about the writing about physics. So I'm not sure if you'd fit here. So I think we have to be careful about changing our departmental structures, because that does, in academia, reflect pretty specifically on our image. So just my suggestion. I don't have much more to say, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Hi, Mike.
Hi. I have two really quick questions and one sort of more statement. There are only 4 vice presidents on campus, but there are 9 associate vice presidents, yes. Correct?
Yes.
The budget is still passed by the Board of Governors in May?
Yes.
Even though it's complex and growing and
yes.
all of that sort of stuff? Okay. And the third question I have is, and I know you can't make commitments, so would you think about being willing to provide the campus community with a breakdown of the new positions created across campus over the last 5 years, where they've gone, and what bargaining unit they belong to?
I can look at that. Also, the Board of Governors who passes our budget, that's put online, by the way. That budget is public. That's passed. It's put online, that budget document. So that there's nothing secret or hidden about that. Am I right, Dave? It's online in our minutes?
Correct. And all of the new positions, all of the new allocation on every budget, 11 years worth is online right now.
Is online right now. So so Mike, does that help?
Yeah, I'm wondering just where, does it say in that breakdown, Dave, where those positions went, like which faculty or unit they were on in campus, and what bargaining unit they were part of?
Yes. Well, you'd have to interpret that.
Okay.
Okay. And that's really important, and I want to say to Mike, those kinds of questions, please ask them, because sometimes the information is there and easy to see, and other times we have to create it, but I really want to encourage you to ask. And I want to also go back to a point Mike made earlier. I want to be clear, and I said this in the beginning, we have not been cut by the provincial government. We have not been. This is one province in which they continue to invest in post-secondary education. One of the unique things about the U of R is what's happened over the last 5 years in terms of growth, but we have not been cut by the provincial government, except in sustaining capital. And we have been cut in sustaining capital, which goes back to the physical plant challenges. That is the one area where we cut by half and then reinvest it by a quarter. So we still, in that area, have been cut. Okay? So.
I guess this relates to a question from the student from the Carillon, and I guess it's to reiterate the point that, Tanya Doms from biochemistry, reiterate the point that, finding efficiencies may look real in the context of the APR, but have very little financial impact. And I know at one point it was brought up, the idea of amalgamating, science and engineering, and which historically in the past it's been arts and science that make the natural connection. So I think we have to be careful about not forcing together things that perhaps don't belong together or are not a natural fit for the efficiency of perhaps one dean and one main administrator. So I guess just a cautionary note that while things can look good on paper, I think we really have to be consulting with all faculty on all of these changes. And I think that commitment's been made, but yeah, just really to reiterate that.
And Tanya, the commitment is made to do lots of consultation on any restructuring, and the provost through the APR is committed to do that. I need that. And I don't mean to put, but can I take a teachable moment that you've given me, one of those moments? So we heard Tanya just say, for the sake of a dean's position, we maybe not do that. I want you to listen to everything you're hearing today that I'm hearing, which every input is critical. But I'm constantly challenged that it's not always consistent in terms of messaging. So cut admin positions, be very careful if you do it, where you do it. So I have to manage all that, and I'm doing my best to do it. And your input and those comments are critical to help us make those decisions. So, when Tanya said you may or may not want to do this, and there are impacts to all of that. For every financial decision, it isn't a simple outcome. It's a domino effect that affects many people and things. And I don't think there is anything I could do on this campus, either invest money or cut money, that I would get consensus on as a priority. So you have to work with me and understand that it's not a perfect world. And sometimes I'm going to get you angry, and other times I'm going to have your support. But I'm committed to keep working through and telling you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and I need you to continually come back and tell me how you react to it, positive and negative. So I just wanted to take that moment, Tanya.
Sure. And I guess the other point was that, well, 2 points is that the one that was brought up was that it changes how people view that subject. So a biochemistry degree, for instance, from a science and engineering faculty would be looked upon very differently. And the other idea was that, amalgamating certain departments or faculties can make them actually more unwieldy and less manageable and less cohesive. And so I would be worried about, there are already faculties on campus that are, I would say, I've attended their meetings, and they're unwieldy because of the marriages that have been made. And so I'd like to caution that as well. Thank you.
And I'd encourage you to look at different structures at other institutions, because there are different models, different faculties, different approaches, and we're trying to do that too. So that input is really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for this forum.
Thank you.
If you're wondering, there are about 10 minutes left.
I'm aware that the government has continually, I would say, increased in quotes, because I'm not sure, but I'll ask you, are they increasing with the rate of inflation? Because if they're not, it's essentially a cut. And the other thing is, especially in Regina, we're experiencing such a great economic boom, and it's spectacular for everyone that is making the money. But as a student especially, I've noticed rent is something that's becoming unmanageable. Food is going up. Gasoline is extremely expensive. Tuition continues to rise along with it. These are things that are all affecting the university as well. It's not just individuals. The university is existing within this new economic world that Saskatchewan is in. So is the government increasing with the rate of inflation? And if they're not, then we should probably be aware of that, I guess.
My first year, we surpassed the rate of inflation in terms of government investment. It was close to 5%. Last year was below 1.8, and then the sustaining capital had gotten a bit of an increase. So it has varied over the 5 years I've been here, but last year was 1.8. We don't know yet what this year will be.
Okay.
But they have indicated it will be a low investment relative to the 5 years I've been here.
Something that always gets my participation, last call, for questions. Yeah. Could I get you to go to the mic, though? Or, sorry. It's kind of far.
I was trying to save a minute or so by not going to the mic.
Okay. Well, it's being recorded.
Given that there's very little time left, I just wanted to make a factual correction. The provost pointed out that I had a fact wrong. It wasn't $500,000 that we spent on the consultant. So it was 150. So apologies, I had my number wrong.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so absolutely here, last time to get up at that mic.
I'm Cheryl from Education, and I guess I'm going to make this maybe very naive or very oversimplified, but I'm guessing the source of our funds are tuition and government funding. And I'm sure that that's not unique just to this university, but universities all across Canada and United States, as well as the financial climate. What are universities doing to look outside the box? How are we going to raise funds outside of those two main streams?
Yeah, universities are doing a lot more work on fundraising than they have in the past, and that, as you know, fundraising has become more and more challenging as more and more needy causes are looking at the same option. And contract research has increased over the years, which provides overhead. It's interesting that a lot of that doesn't cover the costs of the contract research. So there's some challenges there. But I would say that all of us are challenged by it. I don't think any institution that I know of has come up with a formula that they're comfortable and happy with to deal with the fiscal realities. And if you know, and that's one of our challenges, is that we're all struggling, right? Except Newfoundland.
Okay, we'll move to the rock.
Yeah.
I'm going to invite Vianne to give some closing remarks, but before I do that, I'd like to personally thank you for agreeing to this forum. I think it's should be noted that few presidents would probably agree to such an open, unscripted forum. I'd also like to thank each of you in the audience for your participation, for your courage, actually, for coming here and discussing matters, for your passion and your vision. So thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Marc. I want to thank all of you for coming, and in particular thank people who got up to the mic. I want to touch on some of the key themes I heard just very quickly, and it's not, I may miss some, but we have note takers that will help afterwards, but I heard that there's concerns about efficiencies in particular in some Faculty of Arts departments who have some real challenges, and you've articulated that very, very well. There's concerns about administrative spending, and you've asked me to really pay attention to that. You asked me to listen carefully to you and consult widely with you on a number of aspects, and we will continue to do so. You've also, some of the admin staff have talked about how they're feeling, and how they're feeling a bit under siege, and there's been concerns about even investment in our physical structure. I've been asked to be cautious about where efficiencies happen and to recognize the multiple impacts one decision can have. And so I've heard all that from you, and I will take that. But I've been asked also to be very careful about every decision we make and look at the ramifications. As I said at the start of this meeting, these kinds of discussions are very important, and I thank you for participating. I thank Marc, and I want to say that Marc came to me before Christmas with some real concerns about what he was seeing happening on campus, and I said to him, what can I do? And he came up with a number of suggestions, this being one, and so I said, after Christmas, when I came back, I decided I would take him up on this, but I said, this was your suggestion, help me out here. So I will thank Marc for coming aboard, and also for coming to speak to me about his concerns. I know it's important for you that you see me follow up on your feedback and input, and that's why we've taken notes and videotaped And, you know, my job also is to articulate to my Board of Governors the concerns you have, and I will do so. I want to end by just quoting Dr. William Riddell, the principal of Regina College, Regina campus of the University of Saskatchewan in the 1960s. That was a really important time. That was a foundation for the future of this campus. And at his installation in 1963, he said, "A university develops as a result of changing needs and changing ideas of those responsible for its programs." And I want to say that in today's context, you are the ones responsible for our programs, and that's why it's important that all of us work together. We are responsible for this university, how it's perceived publicly, how the value of post-secondary education is seen by the public. And I think this is a critical time for our future to keep pounding away the important investment of post-secondary education. Many of you know my history. My dad was a miner. I was first generation to attend university. My cousins did not have that privilege and opportunity. It transformed mine and my 5 brothers and sisters' lives, and my parents did it at great, great sacrifice. I believe and am passionate about the importance of making sure that every young person has the same opportunity. Now, Riddell did continue to say, "This does not mean that one just waits to see what will happen, but instead, the most serious consideration must be given to the conditions that the university must face, the responsibilities it has to its students and to the public, and the resources that are available to it to meet these obligations." 1963. I wish I'd written that, because it's what we're facing here today. We're, as a university, always evolving, responding to changing needs and responsibilities. We can't sit back and see what form it takes. The engagement of you and the dialogue that we've had this term has been hard, but very important, very important. And I know that there's fear out there and anxiety, but the more we talk about it, the more we discuss it, the better off we'll be in planning our future together carefully. So as we go forward, we also need to be mindful of our history and that delicate balance from learning from our past and preparing for the future. And so it's a balance we can strike through collegiate dialogue by voicing our views, respecting the opinions of others, listening thoughtfully to each other, and working together to make this university a place where all of us want to come to work. We won't agree on everything, but I hope we can agree on one thing here today, that we love this university and we want what is best for it, and most of all, for our students. That's why we're here today, and I hope that that will guide us through the next few months and maybe even years to come, because this may not be the end of a difficult phase. It may be just the beginning, and I need you to keep talking with me, at me, and to me as we go forward. Thank you again. Thank you.